If you'd like me to mix a record for you, there's a link in the description for all of my YouTube viewers to get 25% off my engineer's booking link. If my mix price is still way out of budget for you, shoot me a DM on Instagram or a message on YouTube, and I will do my best to work with your budget that you currently have available to you at this time. Thanks for your support, and I hope you guys learned something in this video. Peace. Hey everybody, so I'm going to be doing Let's Mix a little bit differently from here on out. I'm going to break up each video into roughly 30-minute sections, upload them in parts, and do both a non-commentary and a commentary version of the videos. The commentary version is going to be the exact same as the non-commentary version. I'll just be talking over it and explaining my thought process. I can't mix and commentate at the exact same time. One thing gets neglected. I either don't fully articulate my thoughts the way that I would like to, or the mix doesn't turn out as good as it possibly could. So in order to combat that, you're going to get two versions of each video. All of this in an effort to make sure that you guys get the best possible knowledge and information while also getting my best version of a certain mix. So without further ado, here's the video. All right, what is going on, guys? As you saw in the intro of this video, this is the commentary version of the Asbestos mix. I am not good at mixing and commentating at the same time. One thing is going to turn out better than the other, and I would rather it be the mix and do the mix fully focused on the mix and then commentate it later on. First things first, don't mind my hair. I kind of woke up and just immediately started mixing this. Another thing is, I've never mixed DMD in my life. This is a first. If I did terribly, let me know. If I didn't, then great, but I think I did pretty good. You guys will notice in the bottom left I have the key commands being casted with Keycaster. I forgot to turn that back on in the second half of this video, which I apologize, that's my fault. But hopefully it'll be a little helpful if you're wondering what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, what buttons I'm pressing, all that stuff. At this point I'm just kind of like trying to figure out what's going on in the drums because I'd never seen these stems before, and I just wanted to familiarize myself with the content of the song. The first thing I noticed that there's two kicks, which in the live mix of Reap, you guys saw that I used a neutron phase module trick, which I'm about to do right here. For those of you that don't know, the idea behind this is neutron's phase module will, if you use the sidechain plus main feature, you can send one kick to the neutron instance on another kick, and it will automatically align their waveforms for you, which is great for keeping things in phase and maximizing punch and all that stuff. Now, if you notice here, it also delayed it, which made it flam. And that's not good. It's not supposed to flam. So what I'm pretty sure I did was just turn the delay off, but keep the phase rotation. Here I'm trying to figure out why it's doing that, and I realize, oh, it's because it delayed it a shit ton. Sometimes you got to do this just to make sure that, like, because it's like a machine learning plugin in a way, it doesn't always do it exactly right. I mainly want the rotation, the phase rotation in there, because that is something you really can't do super accurately by ear. The delay may or may not be necessary. Sometimes it's great, sometimes in this case it's not. So pretty sure I just end up turning the delay part off. The shift control up or down arrow is what's going to clip gain your stems up and down. I start with my levels there at the clip itself, not the fader, because the fader is post insert. And before I add any inserts, I just want to make sure the levels are good in their purest form. Right here, I'm trying to figure out what each of these perk loops does. When there's auxiliary percussion, I like to automate the panning on it quite a bit. I do this pretty regularly, mainly just because it kind of spreads things out and doesn't force all the drums down the middle. That can just clog things up and you lose clarity and some punch sometimes. You get a little more frequency masking than maybe you need. Especially for a song like this where the drums are really important, the smack is really important, and you don't want to obstruct that if at all possible. So one of these perk loops has a kick in it, so I decided to just pan them left and right and leave the real kicks down the middle. Right here, I'm going to throw a filter freak on. I don't like this preset because you can see that big resonance in the low end. He's adding too much like punch to the kick that's in the perk loop. But I like filter freak a lot on perk loops because it adds like a different tonality to them than they would have otherwise. Sometimes it can get a little messy, so you got to play with it a lot. Most of the time I'll just find a preset that's kind of cool and then modify it to my desire, to taste, if you will. Still in this first part, I'm kind of just trying to figure out what's what. So we have three bass sounds. There's the main sort of like almost melodic riff, and then we have the sub, which is consistently playing underneath the whole thing, and then that like kind of response to the main riff. What I'm doing here is another neutron thing. I'm sending the sub to the neutron on the other two basses so that they're all aligned and not eating up unnecessary headroom. As you can see, these are already pretty much in phase, just a slight 16-degree rotation on the one, and then none on the other, which is nice. I like a lot of sub. I like it to feel good and really hit me in the chest. It can be very easy to go overboard on that, but here we're going with some Orion. I don't always use Orion, but sometimes I do, and most of the time that I do use it, it's going to be on more modern sounding records and program drums because it just fits that aesthetic really well. Orion's got some saturation, it's got a little tonal shift, some compression, a little bit of high-end EQ, and then a bunch of parallel buses that you can use, but for this one I opted out of the compression and instead just used it for the saturation because saturation adds a lot of thump and a lot of hit. Here we're doing the good old track spacer, sending the kick to the track spacer that's on the bass so that we can duck it out of the way. This of all genres is like the one to do that in, and maybe a little more aggressively than I normally would. What am I doing? Probably looking at my phone, honestly. Oh, you know what I'm doing? I'm calculating the release time. That is what I'm doing. I want to set the track spacer release to be sort of like maybe a quarter note, or probably, I think I went with a quarter note. Oh, I was tap tempoing. That's what I was doing. Yeah. Tap tempo with a metronome on my phone. There must be a way to tap tempo in Pro Tools, and I don't know what it is off the top of my head. I don't know why I don't know that. That's probably something that's worth learning. I know Pro Tools really well, I like to think, but clearly I don't know how to tap tempo it. Now what I'm doing is trying to calculate the release time for this track spacer. I don't always do this. Sometimes it can be like too unnatural. Sometimes you just want it to be what it is. But for a song like this, where it's like really on the grid, having the release time be synced up to the tempo will accentuate the groove, which is great and helps with the danceability, because this is definitely a dance track. There you go. What am I doing now? Yes, too long of a release. I remember doing this. I think I set it to like whatever a quarter note would be, and then I was like, oh, that's too slow of a release, so let's kind of pull it back to a quarter note or an eighth note. Whatever half of what I originally had it set at was. Bass effects. This is interesting for me commentating because I'm trying to read my own mind from what I was doing in the past. Interesting. Sending all the bass to a chorus just to spread it out. This may or may not be the best idea for the sub, but at the end of the day, there's no rules. We're just doing what feels good. Listening back to this now, I might not have done this on the sub, but definitely on the other two basses, the more mid-rangey ones. The reason for that is like the sub sometimes hits harder if it is truly down the middle, but at the same time, like I just said, there are no rules. Whatever's cool, whatever feels good. Going for some reverb on the strings, just a little bit, nothing too crazy. Give it a little more atmosphere. The Abbey Road plates is like super haunting, and I love it. It's really, really nice. I like starting with presets because, especially plugins like this one, there's too many knobs to like get too bogged down in it, so might as well just mess around with some presets, and then if it sounds good, great. You don't need to change it a whole lot. If it doesn't sound good, then try another one. Yeah, I was just thinking presently while I commentate this that those strings are a little too hot, so as you can see, I just turned them down. Right now, like presently while I'm commentating this, I'm thinking that there's not enough width to this track in general, which I will end up changing down the road, but that's kind of like where my current thought process is. The balance is pretty good, but some things could be spread out a little bit more. Tremolator is a sick Sound Toys plugin that does tremolo stuff. You can get really in the weeds with it if you go a little too hard, but the strings of this track without it were already kind of like doing that sort of tremolo vibe, so just to like accentuate it a little bit more, I'm tossing this on there in parallel, and you will see that I don't put a whole lot in. Yeah, minus 16, but still adds a little more movement, you know? Flash is a transient designer from a Waves Factory, which is a free plugin. I now have the Neutron transient designer, which I actually like a lot more, but for ease of use and simplicity, Flash is great. If you want more smack out of your drums, use a transient designer. Don't compress it, because the compressor is just going to kill the smack. It kills the transient, and the smack comes directly from the transient. That little key command that just popped up, Shift F, that's how, if you select a folder in Pro Tools, you can collapse it or expand it. Pretty nice. Throwing a little bit of light spring reverb on the perk loops here. It's not going to be anything crazy. I start out with all my sends at Unity so that I can actually hear what the effect is doing. And then I blend it into taste, as you guys can see right here. Adding a little bit of saturation to the strings as well with the magma drive section. Just to warm them up a little bit, because they are kind of shrill, a little harsh, a little top end heavy. I mean, that's what they are. They're violins, so it's in their nature, but can't hurt to saturate it a little bit. And yeah, this part I was like, I need way more kick. If you don't know how to clone a plugin instance, all you gotta do is hold Option on your keyboard and then click and drag it down to wherever you want it. So that's what I was doing just there with the track spacer. More snare. Really need that to smack us in the face, you know? And going straight for the bus. Oh yes, the God Particle. I used to use this plugin religiously, but then I realized being romantic about mix decisions is not the way to go. Don't want to put it on there just to say you put it on there, but the God Particle is good for music like this. It's multiband compression, really nice sounding multiband compression and some character. Not exactly like OTT. I don't have OTT, so that's why I didn't use that on this, but I don't know. It kind of puts the whole track in your face a lot more, which is something that I wanted out of this particular track. I also turn the limiter off as soon as I open this up because I'm going to limit it with ozone later on. What are we doing? More transient attack. Interesting. On the snare. Also, I know that my master meter is technically clipping the shit in this song, but I don't really care. It's not audibly distorting or anything. So, why not? Oh, look, decided against the flash. Sometimes, that's what I'm saying, you shouldn't like get romantic about your mix decisions. If it doesn't work, then don't do it. Okay, there we go. That's the end of pass one. This was me like a week or two later, I believe, doing another pass. I kind of got busy with work stuff and realized, oh, it's time to give this one a go again. Just sussing out some OBS stuff real quick. Shaving off the subs of that perk loop, even though there wasn't much, just trying to carve a little bit more space out for everything else that needs to live under there, like the actual sub and the kick and all that good low end. Realized that this response to the call and response to the bass was a little bit too hot, so I pulled it down there, pulled the sub back a little bit, nothing too crazy. If I take a big break from mixing a record, like in this case, it took me a week or two to get back to it, I kind of have to go back through and refamiliarize myself with whatever I'm doing. This part, I remember seeing a clip on Instagram or something with, I cannot remember her name for the life of me, but a mixing engineer that does a lot of dance music, and she did this cool like low end only saturation thing with an isotope plugin, and I can't figure out which isotope plugin it was. But it, for one, she like shortened the length of the kick, which you'll see me do with a transient designer to make it more punchy and just not take up as much space. And then she saturated only the low end with like some sort of multiband saturation, and I cannot remember which one it was. The Nectar saturation doesn't do what I thought it was going to do. That EQ curve is an actual EQ curve. It's not just, oh, this is what we're going to saturate EQ curve, if that makes sense. Like there, all the highs get rolled off. So I guess I could have gone into parallel and done it that way, but I kind of just decided against it because it was already in a good spot. It just needed like a little bit more oomph. And here is the transient designing. I can't remember for the life of me. I think it might have been Slipknot. They were talking about like, because of how Joey Jordison played his parts and like how fast paced they were and how full they were, like how many individual hits there were per fill and stuff like that. They wanted to, don't take my word for this, but they wanted to experiment with like short, tight sounds and making those feel big and maximizing impact. So I kind of took very loose inspiration from that with one, watching that mixer on Instagram. God, I cannot remember her name. And that sort of short, tight kick sound. And I think it worked for this. Just there, I sent the risers to a width bus to spread them out a little bit more. Because they're not like a focal point, but they are... When I say focal point, I mean like they do add a lot of tension and push and pull and release, but like the strings and other stuff are a little bit more important in this case than the risers are. So to make sure everything has its own space, spread the risers out. Putting the guard particle back in. A little God particle A-B action just to make sure that I actually like what it's doing. And from here it's time to Ozone. Ozone is sick. I really like it. I've only had it for a couple of months, but I'm loving what it does. It's been a journey to really learn how to use it and use it to the fullest potential that it can provide you. It can be kind of weird when you first start, but you just gotta finesse it a little bit. So the way I ozone is start with the mastering assistant, let it do its thing, and then go from there. Now, as you can see my reaction, that was just like, what the fuck? Way too bright, way too in your face. So I'm just trying different genres. What I want my initial starting point with Ozone to be is just my mix, but louder and fuller and better. Like, it is way too bright. Really important to remember that, like, the name of the genre that is listed on the Ozone preset is not always going to be the perfect fit for your mix. That is why I'm clicking through a bunch of different stuff. I did hyperpop. Right now I'm on the techno one. There's the reggaeton. Indie pop, why not? Just try it out. Like, I've done R&B songs where the best possible preset for it was hip hop. And I know R&B and hip hop are like not really the same, but they do share some common elements. One other thing that I did, if you guys notice, I clicked the gain match button on Ozone so that I can make all of these modifications at the same level at what I was mixing at. That's really important. Yeah, there you can see I was like, oh, that's nice. Dude, okay, so the Ozone Dynamic EQ, I have yet to keep it in. It kills all the life. Here I was like, I don't want to take all this sub out, so I bypassed that band on the EQ. Impact. This is my favorite module of Ozone. It's like upwards and downwards multiband compression, and the sync feature is great. I hit the delta button so that you can really hear what's happening, and I use that to pick a groove. Whatever's the most danceable, you know? I'm using my eyes too much. I'm watching this back now, and like I'm using my eyes way too much to adjust these two clarity and stabilizer modules. I should have just closed them. It's really hard to do that though and use a mouse. God, I move so fast because you can't tell if you're actually adjusting it or not, like feel wise. Yeah, on the Maximizer I'm kind of just flipping through presets, algorithms. IRC4 is like one of the most common ones that I land on, but they all have different like tonal characteristics, so whatever just feels best. The limiter, I really try not to hit anything too hard at all. It's really just there to set the ceiling more than anything. God, that impact is like such a subtle change, but it's so important. I feel like at this point, it's like pretty much done. Turning down the response a little bit. Oh yeah, sent the response on the bass to a width bus as well to kind of spread that out so that like when it plays, it spreads out, and then the call and the sub come back in and hit you in the chest. Everything in your mix needs a place in the stereo image, and sometimes if you got too much stuff down the middle, then other stuff has to go to the sides, you know? That can also be fixed with arrangement purposes. Like if you have too much stuff going on all at once, cut some stuff or have them play at different times. Arrangement is key. The mix will only ever be as good as the recordings will only ever be as good as the song, and the song will only be ever as good, or sorry, the recordings will only ever be as good as the arrangement can only ever be as good as the song. Something like that. There's a trickle down thing there. Same with the master. Master's only as good as the mix is only as good as the recordings. Recordings are only as good as the performance, and the performance can only ever be as good as the song is. Yeah. Okay, right here, this is something huge. This is a great tip. You should always find the very end of your song and then make a selection marker. Do that on the numeric keypad by hitting enter to bring up the selection screen. Change it to selection and name it print. This way, when you go in to do revisions, you can go back to that selection marker and you'll print the same length of mix every single time. And here it is, the final mix. I'll let you guys listen to it top to bottom without me talking over it. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something. Peace.